Hi, Sai Kiran. Thank you for joining the call. How are you?
I'm doing good, Kamlesh. How are you?
All well. Thank you. So, anybody who is listening this conversation, it's a very interesting fact. Sai Kiran is the founder of Wildlife Whisper, and I'm sure
Whisperers.
more whisperers. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, what it is and how it is, probably I'll come to that later. But this sounds very interesting because most of us have been fascinated by, have seen the movies in the Three Idiots where Farhan actually dropped his engineering to become a chase for a wildlife photographer. While it might not be exactly the same, but since I've come across your story that has been given a comparison with respect to Farhan as a story, I wanted to understand what it is and how has it started. So, कैसे हुआ ये वाइल्ड लाइफ विस्पर एंड क्या है ये precisely?
तो उससे पहले हम वाइल्ड लाइफ विस्परर्स का मीनिंग सुना. So some,
Yeah.
for example, Elephant Whisperer, which is a movie that is made, which has got Oscar. So basically, Elephant Whisperer is someone who can talk to an elephant, who can understand an elephant. तो उसी context में wildlife whisperers is a group of people who can understand wildlife. What to understand from wildlife? क्या सीख सकते हैं हम wildlife से? तो if you go back few centuries, few hundreds of years, when we actually started living, we came from nature. It's been 2 years that we started Wildlife Whispers, but the idea has been there for some time. Like I still have a page of my journal dated back to 2018 when I wrote Whispers. Probably after a very hectic day at office, I came back home. I was with my friend who was studying in Colombia. I was working in New York back then, and that is when I told him that ye karna hai mujhe. This is what I had to do, and I don't know when I'll do it, but yeah, this is what I want to do. And I didn't name it Wildlife Whisperers then. The name came later, but the model of the business happened somewhere around 17, 18.
So, what's your
Yeah.
background now जब together? मतलब
तो मेरा पूरा पढ़ाई वारंगल हैदराबाद से 150 किलोमीटर दूर में एक वारंगल बोल के एक छोटा सा शहर है. यू नो probably about NIT Warangal. So that Warangal is where I was born and brought up. So for 20 years of my life, the first 20 years, I haven't stepped out of a
Warangal.
city. I mean, I've visited other places, but I lived only in one city, in one apartment mostly. So my dad used to work for railways, so we were in the railway quarters, and it was quite. I mean, when it comes to central government quarters, you have enough greenery around. It is not a gated community where it is all concrete around you. So I was quite fortunate to have nature around me. The same with my school, which is also 50% of the land in the school is mostly the school premises. The rest of it is all greenery. So all my life, I was fortunate to stay closer to nature. The initial part of my life, I was mostly an introvert. Even now, if I move into groups which I don't know, I keep it to myself. Being an introvert helped me there because uh, reading was the greatest gift I've ever got in my childhood. So I was introduced to reading books quite at a very early age of my life. And the first few years of my life, all the gifts that I've got were books. Like even now, if people are gifting me something, it is mostly books. So it started. I actually got this for my interview. I just wanted to show it to you. This is the first book that I've got. This is dated back to 1994 when I was 4 year old. I've got this book. It is still intact. This is a book which my uncle has got from the US, and I sincerely appreciate all those small moments when people can actually get you chocolates. People when they come from the US get a chocolate, get a video game, get a gadget for you. But it was quite thoughtful of him to bring a book because I was someone who's always sitting in nature, looking at animals, watching Nat Geo. So he got me a book called Animals of the World, which talks about every other category, every other family of animals. I have a 3 year
Okay.
old at home now. My daughter is 3 year old. I probably will start this book to her much earlier than what I've got. So that's how it all started. Then slowly from that book, started reading other books also. Started reading about Jim Corbett's experiences in the wild, Keith Anderson's experiences in the wild. Then started reading a lot of philosophy. I mean, I come from an engineering background, nothing to do with that. But most of the time, my inspiration was from the philosophies of Thoreau, the philosophies of Jim Corbett, Keith Anderson, or anything that is related to wildlife or nature. Because see, my the entire concept of wildlife whisperers or my thought of nature has always been we actually evolved from nature. We belong to the forest. The first fire that human has discovered, human didn't invent fire, he discovered fire. So the first fire that we discovered to the first wheel that we have observed and copied from, everything comes from nature. We haven't done anything like the initial inventions were all inspired from nature. Then digging upon it, I realized that we have also learned behavior from animals, how to be a leader. Because before, by the time humans were on Earth, 300,000 years ago, elephants have already lived almost 90 million years, 50 million years. Ants have lived for 90 million years before humans. So there were all these species which were around us whose social interactions we have seen. And the best part is we need not learn a language to, एक भाषा में बात नहीं करते वो लोग, उनका उनका नॉन वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन होता है, right? So learning from them has always been a part of us, and we suddenly moved ourselves into a different civilization altogether. We are staying no more closer to nature. Nature has become just a part of vacation for us, but which actually has to be a part of our life. We still, if you take for example the premises of an army, even in the cities, the cantonment areas, they still have greenery around them, because for the for the amount of stress they go through, for the amount of relaxation their mind and body needs, nature always has been a cope up mechanism for them. Getting that sense of empathy, which is very very important in these days. So I credit all these to the nature visits that I've done in my life. Then I realized, okay, we have a lot to learn from nature. Why can't we actually build a program? Because as of now, the minute I say wildlife or nature, people either think about tourism or photography. We never look at uh, wildlife or nature as a place that teaches us. Thanks to Rabindranath Tagore, who built the last school, a creative, last creative, probably I would say not the last. Now we have got many more schools now, but the first concept of having a school amidst nature, an art school, a creative school amidst nature, Shantiniketan, where you actually listen to the songbirds, you actually feel the water flowing around you, and each of these has its own importance. And how to bring that into corporate was what we have thought together at Wildlife Express and brought in programs. But the initial thought was nature and wildlife should not be pertained only to photography or only to casual tourism. There is a deeper connection that humans have with nature, and we should probably start telling people about it. So that's how Wildlife Express started.
Coming to that, I mean, this is very interesting take on with respect to you mention about the leadership, you mention about the learning from the nature, you mention about the quality grabbing from the directly from the animal. And this is pretty interesting because there's also saying जब बच्चा घर में होता है, so when there's a kid has been born, it's good to have a dog in your house because they learn the selfless love. And there's a constant saying about it. So there's a lot of emphasis. But at the same time, I also wanted to understand because the moment we grow up, the moment we become older, it automatically it becomes the way we look at the animal more as an entertainment rather than the companion. And the way we look at the except for the dog and the cats and then that but the rest all we look at is more of entertainment. And the best case scenario would be during this COVID time is where people have adopted rampantly dogs and cat, and the moment the market has opened, the when the lockdown has been lifted, they started abandoning on the road, and so that's what very
Yeah.
heartening to see, but that's a reality. But when it comes to the learning from and at an age where people have everything has become more of a showpiece, whether we agree it or not. Even the recent case, what I have seen is people are going to Mahakumbh, posting a pic stating hashtag Mahakumbh. So it was no more a spiritual journey, it was more of it getting the attention. Keeping that into the perspective, where do you see and how are you filling the gap when it comes to the training the corporates, when training the professional? Because for the corporate and professionals as well, the moment they see anything related to the wildlife, they immediately say, "Hi, अब 2 दिन का gap मिलेगा, 2 दिन के जंगलों में छुट्टी करें." But then you have a different take with respect to leadership, teaching them at least making them aware of the fact. One thing is how acceptable this has happened, fruitful journey for you, and how do you see? Because you did mention about there are certain programs that you have mentioned, Elephant Whispers. Then you have mentioned Wolf of Wall Street, which were my consecutive question. But I want to understand from you because this is a very interesting take and has been very it's a very different from the normal. As you said, the moment I looked at your website, this guy must be a photographer. But then you said no, it's not photographer. Then the second thought came, this company might be more into the enabling the travel. But that's also not the case. Then how different when it comes to the lesson, training, and so on and so forth?
So we'll start with the first question you asked about the dogs having pets at home. Hasn't it been a culture for us of having cattle in our backyard? Like we come from a culture where animals have always been associated with us. Cat, dog, or cow, or a buffalo, or sheep. We have always had them in our backyard, and it's always good, to and even when we speak about diversity, having someone who's not like us will actually help us communicate better. Think about it. Even among two people, if I, being a South Indian, if I, for the limited amount of time I am exposed to Hindi, if I have someone with me who is constantly communicating or constantly having a different lifestyle, I learn a lot. I come from a different state, someone else comes from a different state, we stay as roommates. We learn a lot just with one diversity of another human who's coming from a different setup of life, right? A different lifestyle. We learn a lot. We tend to take some goods from them and probably try to understand something new. It can be a language, it can be a lifestyle, it can be the way we dress, something that we like. So just imagine if it is from a similar species that we are able to learn much, where we still have some overlap of cultures or of mode of communication, of type of lifestyle. We are looking at animals where we have the overlap is quite less, has come down currently. We learn a lot. We learn a lot. We probably learn compassion from a cow. We learn how to stay loyal from a dog. Just for the amount of pressure that we have at office and come back, there is a little creature that is wagging its tail coming to you with immense happiness. Don't you think you just smile at it?
True.
You can't hesitate. You can't just say that. You can't shoo it away and say that I have my own. मेरा दिमाग इतना मेरा बेजा फ्राई हो चुका है. You just go from here. You want to pet it. Okay, that's how we are, because we belong. We all belong to the same. We all belong to the same planet. Somewhere we have a common connection with nature, with animals, with wildlife. Right. So now coming to the second part of the question, where you were constantly being on the glowing rectangle, I would call it, the mobile phone. and trying to let the world know that they are doing something, right? So that's where the concept of taking people into jungle and having a workshop there has come into picture, because I have been in the corporate myself, and I've also attended a lot of workshops, right? And most of the workshops, आप एक कॉन्फ्रेंस रूम में बैठते हैं, आपके सामने एक इंस्ट्रक्टर आके बैठता है, there will be hundreds of slides that are put in front of you. You try to go through the slides, take breaks. ब्रेक के बाद एक छोटा सा एक्टिविटी होगा, एक्टिविटी के बाद फिर से एक शुरू होगा. लेकिन all this time, the attention span human has, go from workshop into scrolling into my outlook, seeing ऑफिस में कोई escalation हुआ है, कोई email आया मुझे कि
Correct.
कुछ तो हो रहा है. I probably start going into the digital world from a real world. So our brain has stopped taking pauses. We should keep ourselves busy for some reason. Just think about it. Take a take a 40-year-old who's working in the corporate and a 20-year-old who's working in the corporate. The number of pauses a 40-year-old would take is relatively better. But in the current generation, if you ask them to pause, do nothing, just probably meditation. I didn't want to use that word. It is very, very difficult because our brain is conditioned in such a way that it cannot stay still. It needs some or the other addiction, probably taking a walk outside, you know,
Correct.
or just sit by a river or sit by a small green patch. We don't have green patches anymore. That's another challenge that we have. But probably go garden your trees, watering your plants. Nothing of these will happen. We are either stuck in a world where we are piled up with a lot of work, or stuck in a world where we are just doom scrolling on abhi kya reel aayega, kya and you don't even watch the entire thing. You just scroll, right? So our attention span, our focus have taken a toss over generations. So how can we get them back? First thing, cut the digital connection. So we take them into the jungle where there is absolutely activity with the digital world. Be places where you can actually connect. But once you get into a place which is quite foreign to you, you start observing the place. Otherwise, I'm not learning anything from this place. So let me get back into my digital world, which I think has been a problem, has been a challenge that we wanted to address. So first, uh, move them into forest, move them into nature. The next part is make sure that the entire offering is so novel that there is nothing obvious that is coming from. So, for example, I start a presentation and I have something that I already know. There is some part of my mind which tells me that यार ये तो मुझे पता है, सुनने का कोई जरूरत ही नहीं. Okay, let me get back to my scrolling, or let me get back to my work, or let me look at my office emails, or
Correct.
probably chat with my friend. But when I take them into a setup where I tell them that these are all that you haven't, we know we have learned a lot, but this is quite novel. This is all new, you know. Then you're trying to grab their attention for a much higher time, for a much longer duration. So that's how we have, yeah.
So yeah, that's a very interesting take, rather. So on that only, I'll come to that out because you did mention about, so when a presentation comes all together, and if I know some of the slides, if I know some of the content, automatically I'll be like, hey, yeah, ito mujhe pata hai." Now coming back to this, the training that you have possibly, I am not sure how does it work, but when you talk about the elephant whispers training, that is for the leadership, I think you mentioned, and which is
Yeah.
also mentioned on your website too. is it fair to assume that there is a real live elephants are also there somewhere nearby, or is it a part of the training? How does that go? Because that will be interesting. Because if you will start teaching something somebody in the jungle, that's another trigger point. अरे यार जंगल में भी आके पढ़ना ही है, जंगल में आके भी ट्रेनिंग लेना है.
हाँ, तो ये ट्रेनिंग जैसा नहीं होगा. It is not a place where, again, see, it is not a place where you go take start reading and there is someone with a suit in front of you saying that आप अभी एलिफेंट को देख रहे हो, आप एलिफेंट को देखो, देखने के बाद हम उससे पॉइंटर्स लेंगे.
Okay.
We'll take you to the animals. And have you ever been into the wild? आपने कभी जंगल सफारी किया है?
किया.
हाँ, तो आधा टाइम जंगल सफारी is getting again into another race saying that हमको जंगली बिल्ली को देखना है. We have to see a wildcat and we run around and compose there also because our mind doesn't. We have to get into a competition every other minute. We have to get into a race every other minute. But taking that pause. So that is where Wildlife Whispers is from a regular touring company or a typical wildlife safari. We know icing on the cake is always watching a wildcat. But just watching a wildcat, we have 1200 around 1200 species of birds in India. We don't get them in the backyard. We have a lot of different. See, wildlife is not just a wild. आप spider को भी देखते हो. When you try to observe, it's not looking at it. It's taking a pause, observing it, trying to be more aware of your surroundings, of what all can I look at. Makes the entire learning process not learning, but an experience. We have every most of the activities that happen in a wildlife whispers workshop will not be in a conference room. So it is either a nature walk, it is in nature. There is जो भी resort हमने इनके लिए choose किया वहाँ पे we make them sit in the outdoors, have a session there. There's something called forest bathing. Shinrin Yoku is a practice that comes from Japan, where you actually immerse yourself into nature. आप barefoot walk करते हो, आप हर एक ट्री का स्मेल, टच एंड फील देखते हो. So this is this is all this is all very different compared to what we are doing, but has always been exist.
So,
We see jungle in that way, right?
so yeah, I mean, this is, of course, this sounds very interesting, but let me put that in context. I mean, this is broadly, if I have to put it across, because now, since you gave us a clarity, boss, wildlife whispers is more into the broader category of learning and development. Am I right?
Mhm. Yes.
How acceptable it has been for you to winning the client? Because the moment you talk about that, boss, I will I will impart some of the training that is more related to the jungle, more related to the wildlife, and then that would transcribe to the leadership or maybe something else. How acceptable? What was some of the any major success story sort of,
See,
or what was the
the,
major
the
problem
in,
that you might have faced initially? Because if you'll ask me, बॉस मुझे पैसे देना है एंड अपने एम्प्लॉय को जंगल भेजना है, अरे छोड़ो यार, चलिए चल ही रहा है, चल रहा, and everything comes at a cost element. So yeah, from that angle.
right. So I'll tell you probably a bit deviation from the topic. This is where most of the startups or anything that start any business needs a mentor. Okay, a mentor will give you a direction.
Okay.
Mentor will let you know how your dream of solving a problem can transform into selling a solution. So I was very fortunate to have a mentor who's a co-owner of the company now, Ms. Arpita Katria. I met Arpita again in Jungle few years ago, and in Jungle I met her even before Wildlife Whisperer started. Then couple of discussions there when there was a forest, the fireside chat going on. Had a couple of discussions. Then later reached out to her, and that's how most of the team that you see that is built at Wildlife Whisperers has been quite organic. These are all people with a similar interest of loving nature the way it is and have a habit of going into nature. So, my mentor helped me get that direction of how to make it more scientific, like probably bring in more L&D elements and make the program more scientifically uh, concrete, like in terms of building an assessment, in terms of making the entire thing less casual and more engaging and more learning oriented. जब हम क्लाइंट को पिच करते हैं, we are not pitching an offsite to a client. We are pitching a proper transformative learning experience. तो उसके लिए आपके पास you have to have some tangible elements in your workshop which are takeaways for the participants. It can be few aspects of leadership. It can be a change in mindset. It can be trying to build trust among themselves as a team.
Okay.
It can also be resilience. It can also be how they adapt to changes. How to
Okay.
bring in these elements is where my mentor helped me. And initially, yes. So having a mentor at an initial level made the journey quite easy. So once we have built the templates, once we are there, we started looking at companies which actually have interest in employee mental health, mental well-being, and companies which actually look for offsets. We are not trying to pitch it to every other company in the corporate. Go talk to them because not many might have induced that employee wellness, employee mental wellness. There have been few incidences that we know where uh, employees mental health has taken a toss, probably ending up in a total breakdown, which comes onto internet, and then company starts taking measures on making sure that all its employees are going through some mental wellness programs or going through having some outdoor activity planned so that they get a breath of fresh air. So we actually take you to fresh air. We make the entire program so engaging. So we were reaching out to very hand-picked people in the first year, saying that probably we know we have known the founder or we have known the CHR of the company, or we read about them somewhere on social media saying that they have going into nature as a habit in their lifestyle. So to pitch to someone who is already in nature is quite easy because they already know that there is a lot to learn from nature. And the minute you say this is how it is, they are quite excited.
So, wait, okay. So now again, I wanted to ask you from the very layman per se. When you talk about a program which is more focused on Elephant Whisper, Wolf of Wall Street, and these names, and then you also have some of the program for schooling. Schools, I understand, because these are the kids. You can take them, you can collaborate with the respective institutions, and that makes sense. But the tricky point comes with respect to is it's the mindset with the people that they are going, or how does that training works? I mean, let me put that simple. Let's talk
So
about the elephant whisper. So you already have the content ready where you make them run through, make them understand, have a conversation activity in jungle, और क्या है कैसे काम करता है.
So ये पूरा journey आपको है जो that see anything needs an intro. You just can't take them into the wild on one fine day and tell them okay we start a workshop. So we do a curtain raiser program. We actually have a on virtual meeting with all the participants. For example, leadership or uh, or we did a program for one of the large FMCGs on building trust among the team. So what happens in these places is it starts with a virtual session in the first place. So
Okay.
we talk to them, we create that curiosity, and we also discuss about the workflow of how the events would happen so that the context is set right. Much before this, what happens is there are few additions into the standard program that we do based on the company or the teams that we are talking to. So we sit with the chief HR or the chief learning officer of that organization and try to make sure that the company's core values and everything are put into the program. We do that part so that the learning officer is also aware of what we are actually offering as a learning. The next part is go into the jungle. So the first day, what we do is we introduce them to we can't just tell people to be aware of nature. We introduce them to nature in such a way that they start looking at nature from every sense of theirs. The safari part comes way later.
Really.
Safari is just probably 10 to 20% of the program, but the remaining 80% is staying aware in nature. So we have a wonderful combination of a naturalist and a facilitator who go along with the team. Naturalist is someone who brings the outside world attributes, like probably a spider's web. What is a corporate lesson that you can learn from a spider's web when you're walking around? From trees, from from probably looking at animals communicating among themselves. Okay, and all these small things which we often do not see or do not observe when we go into nature. It'll either be we addicted to the social media, trying to make reels out of it. We never stay focused and start learning from these animals because they have always been there. It is not that we are trying to introduce new concepts there. A spider has been building its webs for donkey years now. It is not that it started building today.
Yeah.
And the best part is the if you start looking at it from an architecture perspective
Yes.
or from a perspective of a strategy on how it builds and all, it is all these are all lessons that again these are all lessons that you learn as a naturalist. And these lessons, how to put them back into the corporate part, is what a facilitator does. So we have proper psychometric certified L&D facilitators who sit on the team, who come in along with this, and who bring in the corporate workshop part of it. So it is again when I try to compare with a typical safari probably talks about the zoology, saying probably this is a spider, its का scientific name ये है और ये यहाँ पे मिलता है और ये यहाँ पे मिलता है is the knowledge where it stops at. What Wildlife Express does is it takes beyond just the zoology of it. We bring in the management
There's a
part of it. We bring in the engineering part of it. We bring in the strategies part of it, and try to put the storytelling in such a way that they go back with curiosity. So our intention, our mission is to make people step out of the concrete world and go into the urban world, go into the natural world. I'm sorry. So if we achieve that, we are good. That is our
yeah.
success.
Interesting. In fact, I remember so when I was in Leh Ladakh, so this was an expedition that we did via the bicycle. And
Oh, one
like
wow.
it was 8 days of bicycling that I'm referring way back in 2017. So from the next year onwards, I mean, this is something that we have started, and the next day immediately our network have gone, mobile network. And we have been already told about it, but the immediate panic that I have seen, including me, that yeah, network near internet, near network near internet, near network near internet. It took us for some time, almost for 3 4 hours, to get settled with it. And for the next 7 days, there was no network. We were in no network zone. And the kind of bonding that I have seen for me, it was the very first time that I experienced after ages altogether was a different league altogether. This was the first time that I have seen because there's no network. Then what will you do? You end up with the same bunch of people. The kind of connection, the kind of empathy, the kind of relation that I have seen, some of the relation are still existing despite it's all strangers were there. And that's something, the bond that is created when you, the moment you try to disconnect yourself from the digitalization. And then I think it totally makes sense as well with respect to, I think there's a lot of saying about the digital detox. I know going by the acronym, it also makes sense. But I think digital detox का one of the major sense could be also happen where corporate may impose them कि भाई आपको महीने में एक बार कहीं जाना without taking your mobile. And that itself
Right.
could be a major trainings or learning experience for most of them, not only for the employee, but for anybody and everybody. It gives you the differences. You leave them with dogs, you leave them with, I've seen, I mean, I remember in one of the training session, I have seen, of course, on the YouTube is where they left bunch of employees with dogs alone. That's it. They have taken their mobile back. So that's how they also train a lot of things which also related to video. But the only interesting part for me, I wanted to understand how do you go about elephant whisper, wolf of Wall Street, what you have mentioned by the nomenclature, but it totally makes sense. So yeah, I think this helps me understand and
I
where
mean, this in fact brings back one great, because thanks for bringing that topic of dogs. Because I remember I went to school in the US, in the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. So whenever we used to sit in the library and study for our midterms, our finals, the day before the exam, I think we still have that tradition. If I'm not wrong, I probably have to go back and check in the college. We There are a bunch of, not we were talking about at least 20 to 25 puppies, dog pups, which are left on the floor, and people just keep their laptops aside just to, because they have been sitting all night, all day in the library preparing for their exams, building their project work. All they need is that 10-15 minutes. Go sit with the pup, try to de-stress themselves, disconnect. The minute you disconnect, right, and you disconnect, you get back, you will have a different perspective. You'll probably find solutions for something that you're stuck. And unfortunately, most of the times the disconnect currently is happening stepping out of the office, going into a much polluted road, take a smoke and go back. It is not a proper disconnect, not a healthy disconnect.
okay.
But just imagine taking a 2 or 3 days off, going into a AQI of double digit, which hardly happens in the cities. Anything less
So
than 100 itself is a luxury for us. But think about, because you've been to Ladakh, you know how pure the air is. And 2017, I would definitely understand that it is much better than what it has been post COVID. So the purity of air itself is quite addictive. Like you are no more in a place where you feel that stress. Probably after 8 hours of cycling, also your lungs were still intact. You are not restless. But driving for 2 hours in a city environment, you'll get exhausted. Even sitting in an auto rickshaw, forget about driving, because you are no more giving that pure oxygen to your lungs, right? And now you go into the jungle. You try to do all these activities where, first of all, you don't have internet. Second, you start bonding with people who work with you at a different level. You start bonding with them at a different level, and you have a psychometric evaluation going on when you're doing all these intuitively. At the same time, uh, the fun of being in nature, the fun of observing animals and learning something new. So this is altogether a transformative journey. We won't tell you that day one you go back, you start learning something new. You try to transform yourself immediately. But there will be a part of your mind which always wants to come back into nature and learn. There are a few learnings that I've already got from nature. Nature is not just trees. It is also spiders. It is also termite hills. It is also ants. It is also snails. So next time I see them, I probably observe them rather than just go click a picture, come back, or just ignore them and go. I just go there, uh, observe them, and try to get some learnings from them. Now that I have a foundation of how to observe these animals and learn about them.
So the one of the second last question I wanted to ask you, because I've gone through your website, and the kind of team that you have built is very fascinating. I understand that you yourself is very comparatively very young than your team, because your team has some of them are 20 years of experience, 25 years of experience.
Right.
Where did you get those team from, by the way? I mean, these are very credible people to have, honestly speaking.
Right. See, what I am very fortunate to have everyone, the team that you see, right? Starting from my mentor. As I told you, it was quite a moment of serendipity. I met them during me or my mentor. I've met them in our different walks of life. Someone who's closer to nature. Again, everyone comes with a common interest of immense love for nature in whatever they are doing. Some travel, some stay in the jungles, some make it a hobby to go into jungle once in a while, take their families. So the culture of being closer to nature is a part of wildlife explorers even before the people actually onboard into the team. So this is, and I tell you, it is I'm quite honored to have a team which comes with a lot of activities. Why they are a part of the team is that they strongly believe in the concept of wildlife explorers. They know that this is something which is different, this is something which is effective, and this is something that is going to work. The model is something that they believe in. As for every other person on the team of wildlife whisperers, we believe in the concept of wildlife whisperers, and we all work on a single mission of connecting the corporate world to the natural world. See, end of the day, we don't want to be that set of people who talk just about conservation, because people conserve something. We can conserve something and we understand it only when we are taught about it. So at Wildlife Express, we start teaching you about nature is when you start falling in love with nature, the real love. And when you fall in love with nature, there is no need of a placard that says no plastic. There is no need of a placard saying save trees. You intuitively will start doing it.
Interesting. So one last question I ask in most of the conversation I had with anybody for that matter, because you are especially, I wanted to target you as an individual. You are one of the very few who actually makes us jealous, because हम ऑफिस में बैठ के हमेशा जलते रहते हैं यार, कब छुट्टी होगा, कब कब कहीं घूमने जा सकते हैं. We had to legitimate plan for 6 months prior, few months prior, and so on and so forth. And you are the one who is actually chasing something which is very fascinating. At the same time, it gives a sense of not only distance but the sense of realization that हाँ अभी हम जिंदा हैं. Otherwise, whether we agree it or not, there's also a saying, by the time most of people reach 30, they are already dead. They're just waiting to be buried. And that's the reality. So, one piece of advice that you may suggest to somebody who is actually who is working in a corporate professional and sitting in a desk and a AC environment and so on, but dying to do something of their own, a piece of advice, at the same time a piece of line in similar to yours probably you may suggest where one can explore, because thinking about the business is different than the doing the business, because there is a saying that ideas are cheap but the executions are toughest.
Yes, absolutely, Kamal. So, see, first thing I would say is I still I have immense respect for people who go into wild as a hobby. You know, right now, now that it has become a full time for me, I respect people who do it as a hobby, who make it quite a religious attempt to take a break from their work and then go into nature and come back. Let the entire any hobby or any passion driven business, transformation should be quite organic. It took 15 years for me. It might take 25, 30 years for someone else. I know of I know of wildlife photographers. I know of people who have started on their own after 30 years of their corporate journey. So there is no hard and fast rule that after 10 years आपको नौकरी से बाहर आना है और खुद का कुछ शुरू करना है. It is never like that. So The minute, and the second thing is, you will get hundreds of ideas. You'll get hundreds of ideas. Implementing, by the time you get into the phase of implementation, 100 might become zero also sometimes. For the role of a mentor, who makes it very clear. Look, talk to someone who is quite experienced. Bring someone, take someone as a guidance, not GPT, not Gemini, but actual people who have run business. Whisperers team were strangers to me 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I did not know any one of them. The team completely was built on trust and on a singular vision of connecting the corporate world to the natural world. So the minute I interacted with them for the first time, second time, third time, even my mentor for that matter, is when they start believing in your idea. We believing in our idea is altogether different, because the minute I think I can build a flying car, my mind already makes sure that I'm not losing the battle, imagining it. That's how our mind works. The minute we get an idea, we think it is successful. 99% of the time. You sit right down. How sustainable your idea is. How can I generate revenue from? Can I literally run this thing all alone? If not, if its answer is always no, how should I build my team? What should my team? Is it, as you said, is it okay if I am the least experienced in my team? Do I have focus on my vision? Can I have a team which has seniors who the fact that this is an idea, but at the same they try to help you, they try to build this along with you. These are all the questions you should ask. And then don't go by a playbook. Don't go by a standard playbook in the market saying that, okay, this is how a profitable business has to be run. Probably पहले हम एक let's look at all the templates. There is an e-commerce, there are there are travel companies, there are for example uh, some integrators that are available in the market. So let's build an in the last 5-10 years, integrators have been successful. It is no more standard template saying that आप इसी पढ़ो तो आपको नौकरी मिलेगा कंप्यूटर साइंस, आप फिर मत करना मैकेनिकल. No, you're again that playbook. Don't get into that playbook. The minute you have faith, the minute you have confidence, and the minute you believe yourself in a vision, from an idea, the minute an idea transforms into a vision is when you start enforcing that statement. Okay, to happen from just a photographer trying to go into wild and click pictures of animals. It is a it is a journey where I've met many people. I've met people who actually are on the team of Wildlife Whispers today, building Wildlife Whispers together. We all build Whispers together. So till that, there is a journey that has to happen organic. You can't speed up just wanted to build a company of your own. Let it be as organic as possible, because nature itself is organic. We cannot speed up the germination of a tree. I mean, we do it for our farming purpose, but in wilderness, the tree takes its own time, sweet own time to become a tree from a small seed. A termite hill takes its own time. It doesn't say, okay, I have to build it tomorrow, so I'll start it today. It believes the entire concept of nature itself is believe in the process. It takes some time. It takes some time for a river to actually flow, right?
Totally.
If you go into a glacier, you probably look at one drop and think it ये कहाँ से river बनेगा? Few hundred kilometers away, you actually see a river that can take you off. You cannot stand that the force of that river. So where is it? It is a transformative journey altogether, right? So give that time. Not that I have an idea, I have to start it today. the idea, give the time for an idea to become a vision. The minute it becomes a vision, then probably bring in the business.
As you said it rightly, I mean, of course, things are there, but a mentor, if you happen to have somebody who can hold you to an extent, as in terms of mentor, friend, or senior who can suggest you throughout the journey, it plays a very crucial role, of course. Totally makes sense. Great, Sai Kiran. Thank you. Thank you so much for these insights because listening someone from who has actually bootstrap and this is something probably is I'll not say much in need of an art probably, but that is rather I should say this is much needed something probably not only for the employees but everybody. Everybody needs some sort of time. In fact, in Sweden, in most of the Nordic countries, there's a they have built up parks and so on and so forth in and around where people can unwind themselves. There are benches that they have made where people can actually sit and talk with the strangers. Those are the essence of
Right.
entire human relationship. So there is also saying that in today's human being, the one thing that is missing is being. We are just human.
Right.
And that plays a crucial role. So thank you so much for those insights and thank you so much for your time, Saturday.